Welcome to episode 19 of Dissent into the Wormhole, where we discuss everything from ancient civilization to modern day social issues. I'm Les.
I'm Stevie J, and today we're going to take a look at part 2 of our JFK Assassination series, which is going to be discussing the incident itself, the shots that were fired, and the immediate actions afterwards, which is very, very interesting given what we covered in episode 1 of this, or part 1 of this series, talking about all of those things, all of those connections, and all of those people who had a motivation to see JFK be taken out. So I'm excited about this one. How are you feeling about it?
I feel good about it. I feel good. Once again, these are opinions and theories of other people.
Yes.
And, theories of our own as well, but we're taking our theories and opinions from the theories that other people, because there's some people who have been investigating this since day one.
Right.
Like 50 some odd years. There's one guy who spent 25 years in general.
Exactly. Yes.
Like it was his main mission to figure it out.
100%. And far more qualified than we are at what he was investigating as well. And so,
yes,
we base all of what we're saying on what we've learned from them. And I feel like, with one in particular, at the end of his theory, we maybe have a difference of opinion with him, but we'll share that as well, and the reasons why, which we've generally pretty much covered throughout this series. But yes, our opinions, but you've got to ask yourself, like we did in the first episode or the first part, like who benefits from JFK being gone? But in this one, let's get into what happened on the day.
Yeah, so November 22nd, 1963, the motorcade was going through and it made that left turn, that important left turn, as you so insightly notified us to. There was a great insight to that, actually. And something odd happened. Something very, very odd happened with the Secret Service, his security detail. What happened, Stevie?
Well, if people remember the footage from the motorcade, and just prior to the shooting, there's a Secret Service agent at the back right-hand side of the vehicle. And he all of a sudden hops off the vehicle, stands to the side, and what he actually does, if you watch the video again, is he throws his arms up in the air like, what's going on? Why am I not? Mm-hmm. Why am I not on the vehicle anymore? Like, and why would he do that? So that's the first question. We always have to ask why, right? Like, we see it, and we have to ask why. Why was he not doing his job on the back of that vehicle? And I think you've got the answer to that question.
Yeah. So what happened was when that left turn was happening, there was confusion with the Secret Service, and the chase car backed off. And the motorcade procession motorcycles backed off. There was no one actually protecting the president going down that stretch of road. As you call it, which it makes sense, the kill zone.
Exactly. Yep.
No one was protecting him, and he was in an open limo. The bubble top was taken off because it turned out to be a beautiful day. It was raining earlier, but the sun came out. And why is that? There are people. The Secret Service is there to protect him at all costs. And in Texas, in Dallas, let's not forget, he was not very well liked.
Right.
This was a place that it was not a warm welcome for Kennedy that day.
Exactly. And there'd been 2 other attempts in the weeks leading up to it. So the Secret Service should have been at the highest level of awareness, alertness, and doing their job, which is the sole job of the Secret Service, to protect the president. So why did those motorcycles back off? Why did the car behind the president's car, which was full of Secret Service agents, why did that back off? And why did that agent hop off the back of the car and step to the side.
Yeah, because he looked back at the chase car and he just put his arms up. He's like, what's going on? There was so much confusion within that Secret Service group
Yeah.
that, and the commotion around it tells me that they got an order from up above and they had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
I But as we go into it a little bit further, I question my own theory when I say that, but we'll get into it. But the eerie thing was this a premonition or was it intuition? Jack Kennedy said that morning how easily it would have been to have killed him in the motorcade that day because the stretch was so dangerous for him. There was nowhere for him to go. There was no place he could divert to.
Yep.
It was closed off and there was the underpass as well. Like that stretch was so dangerous in an open vehicle for the president.
Yeah. In a place
And
that
then his secret,
he wasn't liked.
yeah.
Yeah. And his Secret Service
So it,
people just disappeared. Like they just, yeah. Well, I agree with you, and I want to, point out something that you always say, which is there's no coincidences, right? There is
are
no
no
coincidences. So it's
No.
too coincidental for the Secret Service agent to step off the vehicle, the motorcycles to come back, and for the Secret Service vehicle behind the president to drop back as well. Far too
Yeah.
coincidental. That was an order. That was an order
Yes.
from somebody. Yep.
Yes. And I just have to wonder, and I just had this thought now. I put myself in Jackie's shoes for a second. I'd be pissed
Oh,
because she can watch it. Obviously, I'm sure she didn't watch that video. I'm sure she didn't.
right.
Because why would you? Why would you want to watch that?
Exactly.
You lived it.
Yeah.
But she would have possibly seen that there was no one around. Like when the first shot was hit, and because she was checking on him, she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" She would have noticed that no one was there.
Right.
So did she question
Yep.
what the fuck? Because I sure as hell would have. I
Oh,
would have kicked up such a fuss because at the end of the day, that's her husband.
yeah.
Yes, he's the president, but that's her husband. I'd be pissed. Why are you guys not protecting him?
Yeah.
Why are you not protecting him? And secondly, why aren't you protecting me?
Yeah. Well,
This is what you're here for.
she was in danger as well. Yeah.
She was, yeah.
And
She could have been hit so easily.
oh, wow. Yeah. And look, we haven't brought this up yet, but we will shortly, but in more detail. But the other person who was hit that day was Governor Connolly, who was sitting in
Yes.
front of JFK. He was shot as
Yeah.
well. Now, we'll get into a little bit of that, but yeah, Jackie could have easily been hit. And I mean, the fact that they disappeared like that would have felt odd as well. Even if she didn't
Yeah.
consciously go, where the hell is everybody? It would have
Yeah.
felt strange, given every other motorcade before that would have had a surrounding of Secret Service people
Yeah.
and the motorbikes and everything else. So it would
Yeah.
have felt odd to be like, geez, we feel very open right now. Like
Yes.
we just like
You would have felt it.
why do we feel open like this? Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very odd.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very strange.
Yeah.
And there was just so many people around. And we'll get into what certain witnesses said they heard, they saw, they smelled. But I just want to point out that there were witnesses that said that there were men with rifles. They said, we noticed men with rifles. They thought they were Secret Service. They thought they were CIA or whatever. They just thought they were included in the president's
Detail.
command unit.
Yeah.
And what they were doing was they were showing badges. And what did they say? Secret Service? Yes, they said they were Secret Service. They were showing badges and they were actually directing people away from the line of fire. They were saying, you can't stand here, ma'am. You can't stand here, sir. Please, move over there.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is the Secret Service said they never did that.
Right. Yeah.
No one investigated that.
Yep. Oh, great point. Great point. Because and look, one of the documentaries that we watched on this had a very, very experienced investigator looking into it.
Mhm.
And one of the things he said was, your witnesses will solve the crime for you. Like, they're so
Yes.
important. You need to talk to them straight away. You need to document everything that they say and all of that. And so there was a number of witnesses who said exactly that, like that the Secret
Yeah.
Service were ushering them away, pushing them away. Now, we don't know if
Yeah.
these were actual Secret Service agents. They were people who had
Exactly.
badges and they had guns, but that doesn't mean they
Yeah.
were Secret Service. So,
That's right.
but these witnesses all said the same thing and corroborated the same thing. So,
Yeah.
do you believe, a whole bunch of people, everyday people who are just going about their business and just telling what they saw? Or do you
Mhm.
believe a bunch of people from organizations who had a vested interest in something more sinister?
Yes. I
Right.
would go with the witnesses.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too.
And as soon as you get the same story from 3 different people who don't know each other, that right there is that's pretty solid. And there
Exactly.
was more than 3. Like, I'm just putting it as a
Yeah.
number that there was way more than that that said that's what happened.
Yep.
So, they also said that they couldn't understand how because they said, like, the Secret Service is supposed to be there to watch, like, check the buildings because there were so many open windows, like, that book depository is nothing but windows. And the witnesses said that they saw, men on the rooftop with guns.
Hmm.
And they also said that they saw a man in the window with a gun. How did the Secret Service not see that? How did no one from the details see that when that is their job? When witnesses saw it,
Yeah.
people from the street, regular citizens, they saw it, but the Secret Service didn't.
Yeah.
And they also said that they didn't have anyone with rifles on the roof, but they didn't, but the witnesses saw it, but no one saw. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
just too many things of people saying, it's a whole lot of gaslighting bullshit saying, no, 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 it wasn't us. Like, that's not what you saw. That's
Yeah.
not what you saw at all.
Yeah.
Like, your mind's playing tricks on you. It's fine for 1 or 2 people to have their minds play tricks on them, especially after the fact.
Yep.
Our brains can start making up some pretty crazy things. But so many witnesses said they saw all the same things.
Yeah. They witnessed all the same things, and it
Yeah,
was all in contradiction to what the Secret Service said.
that's right. That's right.
The Secret Service are just like they thought they were Jedi's on the day. They're like, you didn't see what you thought you saw. Like they just, you know,
Will Smith pops up.
yeah, he's got his little
Yeah,
look into this. I mean,
yeah.
and it's not even that far fetched, except that the people did remember. And I want to mention on this as well because you bring up such good points here. But there was the sheriff, I think it was a sheriff in Dallas, who was an extremely experienced detective, and he went to the nth degree to make sure that him and his police officers did the job they were supposed to do, and they interviewed dozens and dozens of witnesses on that day, took all the
Mhm.
records, got it all down, did the job that they were meant to do. Seemingly the only people who did what they were meant to do.
Right.
And so that's all very interesting. But what's more interesting, and we'll talk about this more later, but those witness statements were ignored. So
Right.
because of that same reason, like, oh, you didn't see that. That never happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all very, very, very interesting and very secretive. I know they're called the Secret Service, but like in this case, you would have thought they'd be very forthcoming in saying, this is what we did, and these were all the things that we did that day that were so good that we did our job, but they
Yeah.
didn't say anything.
Yeah. So seeing that you're a marksman and you know more than me about ballistics and gunshots, can you cover exactly what happened that day?
Okay. I can, and you're far too kind with calling me a marksman, but I do have some experience with being in the military and
Mhm.
shooting and all of those sorts of things. So, so the official story, I should say first, is this. So there was 3 shots fired from the same gun and from the same position. Now the official story is that the first shot hit Kennedy in the back of the neck and
Mhm.
went through him, hitting Governor Connolly in the front seat of the car. The second shot missed, and the third shot hit Kennedy in the head, unfortunately, killing him.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the official story. But some points to note on that was that Governor Connolly, who was sitting in front of JFK, said that he heard the first shot and he turned around and was shot with the second shot.
Mhm.
Now, that's a very, very big difference. A very big difference. So he heard the first shot, was hit with the second shot, and then obviously the third shot was one that killed the president. Now, the bullet, the second shot that hit Connolly, that bullet actually, and this is important, that bullet passed through Kennedy, went through the seat behind Connolly, went through Connolly's chest, into his through his wrist, and into his leg. So that bullet passed through all of those things and rested there. The reason why I say that that is important is because that's consistent with the type of round that was officially confirmed as the round fired, which is a 6.5 millimeter full metal jacket round. And all that means is that it's essentially a casing or a projectile that is fully enclosed. It's one solid projectile, and it's designed to do that, to go straight through things. And so the reason why that's important is when you look at the third shot, the shot that killed Kennedy in the end, to his head, there's a stark contrast to that first shot that passed through all of those things and all of those and those two people, because what the third shot did was it actually fragmented, and we saw the damage that it caused to Kennedy's skull. Like there was a very visible, almost explosion, and that's what it's designed to do. But that's not what a full metal jacket round is designed to do. The round that would do that is a hollow point fragmenting round. So that's designed to break apart upon entry and split into a whole lot of different pieces, so fragment, and cause massive amount of damage. And so there was also a test conducted by investigators afterwards, many, many years later, which was just a quick test. They put a melon on a stand, and they shot it with the exact same ammunition and rifle that Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly used, right? Which was the 6.5 millimeter full metal jacket round. Okay, so they shot the melon, and you could see right through. It just went one little hole, 6.5 millimeters all the way through. Then they got what they supposed was the round that caused the damage to President Kennedy and actually killed him in the end. And they shot the same melon with that round, and it exploded the entire back half of the melon. So the other thing that's key to remember with that too is that during the investigations, they looked at the autopsy reports and the measurements of the entry wound into President Kennedy's skull. And the entry wound was 6 millimeters, not 6.5, 6 millimeters. And so the projectile that would have been used to kill Kennedy was only 6 millimeters. There's no possible way that you can fire a 6 millimeter round out of a rifle with a 6.5 millimeter barrel. It just won't work. It just can't work. So it was a different gun. That's established. So in this investigation that was done, it was established that there was two guns that were fired at Kennedy. The first one injured him and Governor Connolly, and the final one was the kill shot, but that was not the same gun. Okay, so I hope I explained that reasonably well. But the other interesting part of this as well is that the CBS network conducted a test not long after, where they built a tower on a range, and it was the same height as the 6th floor of the book depository, and they built a track with a target on it that was moving at the same speed as what Kennedy was, same distance, same angle, elevation, all of those things. And they had marksmen try and recreate the shooting. So shooting 3 shots within 5.6 seconds. And really interestingly, it was only achieved once. Only one of those shooters could do it, but it was on his 3rd attempt.
Yeah.
Which is really, really important, because you've got to put yourself in the situation of somebody who's up there. Say it's Lee Harvey Oswald. Somebody who's up there, you're about to shoot the President of the United States. So you're going to be feeling some kind of nerves, some anxiety, heart rate's going to be up, all of these things. and you only get one attempt. You don't get three to try and do it. And so what
Right.
they're saying is, and I know this might be difficult for some people to sort of imagine, not handling weapons and things like that. But the rifle that they said Lee Harvey Oswald used was a bolt action rifle, which means that after each shot, you have to lift up a lever, pull it back, push it forward again, push it down, then reacquire the target again. That's a lot of movements to do. And yes, of course, with training and practice, you can get quite quick at it. But for Lee Harvey Oswald, he was not a marksman.
Mm-mm.
He was a nobody. He had
Yeah.
he had no high level training to do any of this stuff. And so
Yeah.
somebody who was highly trained took 3 attempts to be able to get it under that time frame and actually hit the
Yeah.
target. So
Yeah.
um, there's just a few more things to consider on this, and then we can get off the we can get off the marksmanship stuff. But it is interesting, and it is all worth noting, I feel.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's a couple of things marksmanship wise that even just general soldiers get taught, let alone expert marksmen. And so with firing shots like that, you go through training where you learn breathing techniques and things like that to, slow your breathing, take the shot, like actually pull the trigger when you're at a certain level of your breath so that your body's completely stable and steady so you don't disrupt the shot. The other one is it takes quite a lot of practice to actually do what's called leading the target. So when you've got a moving target, you can't aim at the target and fire because by the time the bullet gets there, the target's moved. So you've got to lead the target and aim in front. And that takes quite a bit of practice, especially when it's not going to be necessarily the exact speed that you've practiced it for in the situation of Kennedy. But it does tie it back to being really important. They took that really sharp left turn in Dealey Plaza to slow the entire motorcade down to a speed that, well, it was potentially achievable.
Mhm.
But what I'm alluding to there is that Lee Harvey Oswald did not have any of this training.
Yeah.
He did not train to do any of this, but it would be required to have to make a shot like that at the range, elevation, and you've got to take into account so many different calculations to make a shot like that. There's the velocity of the rounds. There's the trajectory of the rounds because
Mhm.
like when you fire out of any weapon, the bullet doesn't go straight. It doesn't go flat. It actually curves. Now that curve could be flatter or steeper depending on the type of projectile and weapon you're using, but they all
Okay.
have some curve because they go up and down and onto the point of target. So you've got to allow for all of these different calculations and variations when you're taking that shot. So
And
somebody,
wind too, right?
wind, of
Wind?
course, yep, wind.
'Cause
So
apparently it was a little windy that day.
it was. So you've definitely got to take all that into account. And that is not the expertise that Lee Harvey Oswald had. He
No.
did not know about all of those things.
No.
Um, so the next thing is, I know we're going to get into this a little bit later on, but George Hickey, who was a Secret Service agent
Mhm.
and was sitting in the motorcade vehicle behind JFK, he was actually seen and photographed holding an AR-15 assault
Mhm.
rifle in the car
Yeah.
behind Kennedy.
Yeah.
And the investigator that we watched on this, he actually identified it by tracing back the trajectory of the kill shot to
Yeah.
the Secret Service vehicle and to
Yeah.
George Hickey's position. So he had an AR-15, and I might save this part for later on, but let me just sow this seed. Whenever you're trained to use weapons in the military, in any professional way, you're always trained to keep your finger outside the trigger guard, so off the trigger,
Mhm.
until you've actually sighted and acquired your target.
Okay.
So that's just really important to remember for later on, because I feel like we'll come back to George Hickey and a little bit more
Yes.
about what that was all about. So there you
Yes.
go.
Because
I hope I did that succinctly enough, but that's some
yes.
background on the ballistics and things with
Yeah.
rifles.
Thank you so much because obviously I know nothing when it comes to any kind of that. So thank you so much for adding in your expertise there. So let's take a look at Oswald for a minute.
Yes.
because it's all very sketchy. So he did work at the book depository, and it was, I forget, I think it was either his wife or his wife's friend that got him the job there at the book depository. And for whatever reason, he was also picking up, someone said he was picking up an unemployment check for $33 in like a neighboring town or something. Like, well, that doesn't make sense unless it was a backdated check because he had a job at the book depository. That's very clear he had the job there.
Yeah.
And also very odd that he would be collecting unemployment when another different amount starts to pop up in his earnings every month.
Mm-hmm.
So it was said that he was in the sixth window of the book depository,
Mm-hmm.
and he only had like this little small area to actually get this done. He was propped up on old boxes from books. Like, so that's rickety. So that's another factor. That's rickety as well. That could have collapsed at any moment. Boxes do that.
Yep.
They're not designed for, stability.
Yep.
So they said he took the 3 shots, did what he came to do, left the book depository. 45 minutes later, he shot a Dallas officer, JD Tippett. He shot that officer, then went to the movies where he was arrested.
Yeah. And what a farcical sequence of events anyway. Like,
Yeah.
you've just killed the president of the United States. Now, I'm just trying to put my mind into, put myself in the place of somebody who's going to do that, right?
Right.
So you're up there. I'm just imagining you've got the rifle, you've taken the shots. Let's just say it happened that way. You've taken the shots, you've done what you needed to do, and then you can just quietly walk through the streets, and off you go amongst the crowd of hundreds of people, and no one would even notice. And the other, the other one with this as well is like, yeah, that police officer. What the hell? Like,
That's a
where did
side
that come
note.
from? And why would he do that? Why would he randomly shoot a police officer?
Exactly, because he was just another dude at that point.
Right. He was just another dude. And I said this to you, I think yesterday. Like, what murder investigation? Forget that it's the president, but
Mm,
what murder investigation has been solved within 45 minutes?
right.
So think about it. Think about a murder investigation. Okay, like they rock up to the scene. Let's say they find the sixth floor, right? They go up there and they go, "Oh, okay, we've got bullets, we've got this, we've got that. Okay, great. Let's investigate." Even a convenience store shooting where somebody rolls in on the cameras and they go boom, 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 and they shoot some people and then they get the hell out of there, could take 2 to 3 days, a week to solve that crime and figure out who it is, if they can even do it at all. Sometimes they can't even do it at all. So we're meant to believe that in this massive crowd of people, with so many different people around and all this stuff going on, that within 45 minutes, not only did they know it was Lee Harvey Oswald, they knew he was at the movies and they picked him up and arrested him for it.
Yeah. So we did an episode way, way back about false flags. And one of the false flags was the event solved quickly? It was for the 9/11.
Yes.
Was it solved quickly?
Mm-hmm.
And well, yes, it was. Too quickly for my liking. Too quickly. Because here's the thing, if they had an inkling, so what they said was that, because what also catches my attention is that the officer that ran into the building, like that was their first course of action. President's been shot. They all ran into that building.
Yep.
Why did they run into that building?
Yeah.
Why was that their first course of action to
Yep.
go into that building?
Yep. Especially considering from the ballistics, and there was a lot of experienced people there, like with military experience, especially considering the bullet's trajectory that killed Kennedy was not from the book depository at all.
It wasn't. No, it couldn't have been.
Yet they all went running in there.
Yeah, they all went running in there. And what did they see in the lunchroom when they walked in, Stevie?
Well, I'm pretty sure they found one Lee Harvey Oswald sitting there having a nice hot cup of jubba. He was just chilling out.
Yep.
and that was reported.
Yep.
That was witnessed. He was sitting there in the lunchroom.
So how was it him? So he ran down 6 flights of stairs. Well, no, 4, because he was on the 6th and that was on the 2nd. So 4 flights of stairs. He had just murdered the president and he was calm, cool, and collected, drinking a Coke. Bitch, please. I'm not buying it.
No fucking way. Like, that just didn't happen.
No. No.
And none of this did. I mean,
and they let him go. That's the thing. They let him leave because he did leave. He went to the movies.
Right. And allegedly shot a police officer on the way.
Well, yes, as you would.
Well,
as
I mean,
one does
I was
when you're
just going
going
to
to the
say,
movies.
like, don't you do that when you go to the movies? It's like, you know.
Oh, I was about to say all the time, but that someone can't take a joke. So
yeah,
there's
right,
always someone who doesn't understand sarcasm. So I'm just going to say no.
I do not do that. I did not have relations with that weapon.
Nor did I have relations with that woman.
Except I did. Oh, another podcast.
Can't wait for that one either.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's just it. Like, so, and in the simplest terms, if you just ask yourself that question, how was it solved so quickly? And what other crime in history has been solved so quickly?
Yeah. To this, well, 9/11.
Well, to this extent, though. Well,
to this extent?
Because 9/11 was quicker. 9/11 was quicker in saying what the story was, the official story was, but because that was within 5 minutes. But with Lee Harvey Oswald, like, he was done, like, he was guilty instantly, and they didn't look at anybody else.
No, that's the thing. Why was he the only one? Why was he the only one? And apparently he acted alone. Well, if he acted alone, how'd you find him?
Right.
You didn't know his name. How'd you find him? Very, very odd that they expect people to buy this.
Exactly.
And the thing is, not a lot of people do.
Well,
there's not very many people out there that are buying this bullshit story.
Right, exactly. I think, what was it? I can't remember the percentage, but a massive, over 50% of Americans do not believe the official story.
I think it was close to 80.
Yeah, it was massive. Absolutely massive.
Yeah.
And hey, we're with you. We're with you, people.
Yeah, Canada's with you. Aussie's with you.
Yeah.
We get it. We see it.
Yeah.
Right in front of our faces.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questioning around that. And I'd love to know the steps they took to find it, because that's what we're missing. Yeah. We're missing the steps they took to figure out it was him and to find him at the movies within 45 minutes of shooting the president.
Yeah.
And why was this officer a side note? Why was he like a side thing in this whole thing? Why was, like, who killed this guy to add more insult to injury to this story?
Yeah, well, just to make it sound like Oswald was a bad guy, like even more of a bad guy. Like, oh, geez, he's just crazy. Like, he shot the president and then he went out on the streets and shot a police officer as well. And then went to the movies. Like,
it doesn't...
Why?
It doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right.
Even for someone who may not be the most mentally healthy, it doesn't sound right.
No.
That's not no, but you know, people do strange things when they're trying to block out something they just did.
Yeah.
Because that's what some people are trying to say. Well, he was just trying to block out what happened.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is about all the convenience of this. You know, you mentioned the 3 wallets in the other episode. But
yes.
But in one of those wallets, I don't know which one it was, but in one of those wallets, he had his nice, pristine firearms registration for that rifle. Just, you know, nicely sitting in there. Now, if you were truly intent on carrying out an assassination, you would have 0 identification on you whatsoever.
Right.
Let alone the registration for the rifle that you're going to use to commit such crime.
Well, and guess what Oswald said? He didn't own a gun registration, and he didn't own any guns.
Yep.
So it was purchased in his name.
Yes. And
they said it was from an army surplus. So it's like a rickety old gun from army surplus that couldn't have made the shot anyways.
Right. Prone to jamming, piece of crap. The sight was broken, wasn't aligned properly. I mean, this just blows my mind. There's no freaking way that even if you're the best shot in the world, there's no freaking way you're making those shots if the sight's not working. Like,
Okay.
you're just not making it because the sight
Right.
has to be aligned. You could be the best shot in the world, and I am not that, but I'm a decent shot. But I've had the same thing. Like when your rifle, when your scope is not aligned, you're not hitting the shot, at least not where you want to hit it. So,
Mhm.
soldiers go through this whole process of, particularly if your rifle's been knocked or something like that, where you go through a sighting process where you shoot and you see where the bullet landed, and then you adjust your scope until where you're actually aiming for is where it hits. So,
Okay.
the fact that he had this rickety old piece of shit rifle that was never good even in the first place, let alone now it's like
Yeah.
a World War II relic. Uh, no, just no,
Yeah.
not happening.
Yeah.
But the other interesting part about this, well, there's so much that's interesting, but I shouldn't say it like that. But the other weird thing was that if you had the killer in Lee Harvey Oswald captured, signed, sealed, delivered, good to go,
Mhm.
why would anybody want to kill him? Why would anyone want to kill him? Wouldn't you want to see him tried and imprisoned
Yes.
and taken to, court and, just held up there as the world's biggest example of what not to do? Do not mess with us.
You'd wanna see him on the wall.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That didn't happen.
Yet, no, it was, 2 days later, and he was walking they were walking him, and here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. He was essentially a very, very hated man at that time. So why would you openly in the garage that they were walking him through, they couldn't understand why they were doing the perp walk
Hmm.
because of this,
Right.
of this potentially happening. Like, you want to have him answer to what he's done.
Yes. Yeah.
So why they did it and why they didn't protect him in any way? Because still, even though he did this, he still had the right for his life to be protected as
Right.
he is in
Yes.
custody. It is the officer's job to keep his life safe,
Right.
no matter what he did.
Yep. 100%.
But they openly let this happen. And the odd thing is that Oswald kept saying, "I'm a patsy, I'm a patsy." Now they have gone through because of all our all new technical skills that we have.
Yep.
We have a voice investigation to see if people are telling the truth from their voice.
Yep.
Fuck me if he's not telling the truth.
Well, exactly. And again, that's where one of those instances where technology is a good thing. Like we can
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you,
Um,
technology.
but that's a great point. And the other thing too is that I just thought of when you were saying that, like when you were mentioning about like him going through the trial and all of those things. So we established in the first episode, in the first part of this series, that Oswald was a double agent. He was working with the KGB. And now, if you were the American government and you captured this guy who had allegedly assassinated the president, who was also working with the Russians, would you not
Mhm.
want to interrogate said double agent to find out what the Russians are up to and could be
Yes.
potentially planning otherwise against the United
Yeah.
States?
Yes.
So why wouldn't you want to protect him, as you said, with everything you've got to try and find out what he knows?
Well, because what he knows is that he was a CIA agent with a CIA number. He was an FBI informant. Well, he wasn't a CIA agent, he was a CIA informant,
Hmm.
and he was an FBI informant with an FBI informant number, making $200 a month.
And what happened to his files, the files on that of him working for the FBI?
Oh, they're gone. The FBI, they got
They,
rid of him.
they got burned, didn't they? The FBI
Yeah,
burned the files. Why
yeah.
would they do that? Interesting.
Well, because then it could just goes to show that they knew exactly who he was. They've worked with him. They sent him on this mission to the KGB because
Hmm.
there was some talk that they thought it was very, very people were starting to they were trying to make it look like they didn't know who this guy was. And they said, "Oh, well, because he went to from Mexico to Cuba, and what he told people, he was going from Mexico to Cuba and then Cuba into the Soviet Union." And that was his route. That was his designated route that he was going to take.
Right.
Also funny that he was going into Cuba, and Cuba was in, the Bay of Pigs.
Right.
So there
Yes.
was that as well.
Hmm.
So all of that ties in together. And they said, well, he was up to something. Yeah, bitches, he was up to the thing you sent him to do.
Exactly. He was doing his job that you made him do.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. What was also very troubling was that the other Patsy, the Cuban gentleman Gerberto, he too was seen going into Mexico, and Oswald was also apparently trying to get a visa or something to get into the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union wouldn't let him in. There was some paperwork back and forth, and apparently his Russian was shit. And on and on it goes, on and on it
Yeah.
goes, that he was just, as you said the other day, he was just a guy that sat in the corner and got info. Like, you just didn't think he was a threat
Right.
because he was that guy.
Yep.
He's a guy in the corner taking notes, and no one noticed him because he was just so quiet and didn't have anything
Yeah.
like extraordinary
Well,
about
he was
him.
bland. He was just a bland guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he blended in.
Yep.
And that's perfect for the FBI and CIA and the KGB. It's exactly what they want.
Yep, exactly. And we're getting towards like sort of the pointy end of what we think, and based on other people's investigations and theories, what our theories are of what happened. But I feel like we're going to get into that in the next part of this series, which will be very,
Yeah.
very interesting. But what I think is good to leave people with is going back to briefly, just before you said how there was that voice recognition or the voice testing to see if Oswald was telling the truth. And he was,
Right.
when he was saying that he was a
Yes.
patsy and that he had
Yeah.
nothing to do with it. And so
Right.
that is very interesting and will lead us into the next part of this series. But I just want to leave everybody with this, that when Oswald was arrested, he said that he was going to give his complete history with the CIA and FBI and that they needed to be shut down. So, where do we think and who do we think had the highest motivation for silencing all of this stuff?
Hmm. I have a couple names that are coming to mind, but I'll leave that till the next episode.
Me too, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hopefully, we'll all see you at the next episode and have a great day.
Bye, guys.